Hey guys, this is Justin, joined once again by Corey for another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. Today we are ending the first little saga of the X-Wing series with Book 4, The BACTA WAR. Corey, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to get into the back door here. And
You want to explain that for the stream, just so you don't just throw a bunch of backdoors around and confuse?
I'm just saying we're going to be talking about Star Wars X-Wing the back door.
Okay, alright, no problem there. So last episode, I got really sick at the end. I got food poisoning and I was throwing up a bunch. So if you guys have any questions about Book 3, The Krytos Trap, we didn't get to answer them, feel free to leave them in the chat now if you're watching this live, or you can also email them and we can eventually get to them.
Yeah, so I guess if you guys want to think of any you have right there, I'll just give a little overview of how we got to where we are in the books for anyone who may have forgotten or isn't reading along. So that sounds good to everyone.
For shame if you're not reading along, because these books are really
Well,
fun. Well, not the Krytos Trap's not that fun.
yeah.
The
So
other
at the
ones
end
are
of
pretty
Kratos
fun.
Trap, for those of you who decided not to finish the book, at the very least, the rogues decide that since the New Republic's strategy is going to be going after Warlord Zinj because they think Isan Isard, who has taken over Typhera to control Bacta production in the galaxy, which they need to fight the Krytos virus,
Mm,
uh, the New Republic government calls that just a bit of internal politics that they don't want to interfere with.
right.
So the rogues' response is to all resign their commissions, and we'll talk a lot about how valid that interpretation is.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure there's some legal analysis to do there.
yeah, the rogues decide they are going to leave their commissions in the New Republic and start fighting a more guerrilla rebel style warfare on their own against Isard and focus on liberating Typhera.
Yeah.
So,
It's just for
as Justin said, this is the last book in that
yeah.
arc. So,
Yeah, so for even more background for those of you who missed Star Wars up to now, Bacta is basically a healing fluid. It's the thing that Luke floats around in a diaper in episode 5. The reason they need that not only is because, they're fighting and, people get injured and stuff, but also because, as Corey alluded to, in Book 2, the Empire releases this super nasty disease on Coruscant, which they've kind of given to the New Republic, and the only thing that can really cure it is Bacta. So obviously, demand is extremely high, and now that Izani Isard, who is kind of like the main baddie, has full control over Typhera, which is the main Bacta producer in the galaxy, she essentially has a whole lot of power.
yeah, so the a lot of that has been established in the previous books, and it's something that doesn't come up a lot in Back to War. So a lot of the characters like Admiral Akbar and the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the Provisional Council that would show up pretty regularly in the
Yeah, true.
previous books kind of fall by the wayside, and we're just focusing on Wedge's rogue operation here.
Yeah, I guess the only real New Republic character we get is the Krakens for a little bit. Other than
Yeah,
that, it's kind of a lot more similar to Book 1 in that way. But even Book 1 has the Akbar stuff. But it's kind of a nice change of pace, I thought.
yeah, and we've sort of been tracking our own pet peeves about uh, references and stuff throughout the series where you've been focusing on odds and I've been focusing on Akbar ocean metaphors. And even though Akbar is not in this book, there is one that Mirax makes that I'm going to try to find where it's
Oh,
basically
really?
just an Akbar line.
I missed that.
And
There's not as many odds in this one either. Because, like,
no, I
Book
only got
3,
one.
did you get the one that Booster says? Because Booster basically
Uh,
says, he doesn't directly say, his is about Corellian odds, not Rogue Squadron odds, because both Corellians and Rogue Squadron pilots are known for defying odds. Very important and to keep that in mind.
yeah, I didn't get that one. I had an earlier one very early on in the book where Corin gives the usual "I'm a Corellian,"
Yeah,
or is it Corin? Yeah, "I'm a Corellian. What use do I have for odds?"
yeah.
So at least it's there. It's not as overrepresented as it usually is, but at least we're there.
Yeah, hold on, I think I've got the quote here. There's also section 2 where it's like Corrin and Wedge and Booster, and they're basically like 3 Corellians. We got this. Again, kind of indirect reference to Corellian just being very they've got like a lot of swagger, I guess.
Yeah. So I think I found the Mirax one. Mirax one. It's or maybe it's card. No, it's Mirax. Either way,
What is it? Did you actually?
Corin crystals rarely make it off Mon Calamari. Card definitely fishes for items with a very wide and fine net. So
Oh
they got it
yeah,
in.
yeah, right. Also, on that note, can we just point out like how extra Corellians are with like the way they die and their funeral rites and stuff? So for those who miss it, and there's references to this in other books too. Like it's kind of a big point in one of the Legacy of the Force books when Corellians are like being put in concentration camps on Coruscant. But sorry if you guys heard that notification, by the way. But basically, when Corellians die, they get basically compressed into diamonds, and they get thrown up into, it's kind of like a starscape, right? I guess they would have these across the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just for the ones that help the New Republic.
Oh, okay.
So because they're exiled from Corellia, they can't, or because the Corellian government is separate and it's under the diktat, the ones that are important within the New Republic can't really go back home.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up in that kind of sanctuary thing.
Right. That makes sense. And the sky is supposed to map like the stars as you'd see
As
them
seen
from
from Corellia,
Right.
I think.
I would assume diamonds aren't aren't a super valuable commodity in Star Wars, where like you can manipulate gravity and stuff and exert immense pressure and no problem. Probably can just make them at will.
Yeah, but then who cares about synthetic diamonds?
Yeah, true. You need those.
Just like the real world.
Yeah, but can you imagine
Oh,
just
yeah.
can you imagine just going to a party and you got like a full ring on and be like, I'm wearing Nana today. I'm wearing Uncle Lewis. Got my whole mom's side of the
people do
family.
that.
You think they do or they don't?
I think people do that.
Yeah, probably.
Like, so for my mom's funeral, instead of she decided that funeral favor things should be a thing, and she got a bunch of saplings that she wanted her ashes mixed in, and we gave them out to everyone. It's kind of creepy, but the idea was basically then trees everywhere. So the idea that people would turn them into jewelry and give out their relatives, I think that's a fairly
but
not that far fetched.
You say that, but then like you're wearing like Nana as a grill, or like
hey,
you got your brother on like your belt or something. It's just like
it could happen. It
could.
has to be a thing out there.
Yes.
There has to be someone. There's probably someone in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Wearing a relative.
Probably.
Maybe like a nice coat too, if you want to go really far with it.
I can't believe how far we've managed to get off track so early on in the book. I don't think we've covered a single plot point that actually happens in this book.
All right, so I guess we'll give a brief overview of the general plot of the book, but we're still playing around with the best way to do the format for it, but we're going to try to stay mostly on track, which we never do. But so yeah, the book opens up where Corin, at the end of the last book, he had been approached by Luke Skywalker.
I thought you were going to say Mirax.
That too. But Corin had been approached by Luke, asking him to join his effort to rebuild the Jedi Order because Corin's grandfather was a Jedi named Nisha Halcyon.
That's exactly what Wedge's accent sounds like in the audiobook, by the way.
Oh boy. So totally on purpose. But Corin turned him down because he wanted to help with freeing the prisoners from Lusankya, which included Yando Donna. And he's talking to Mirax. They have some fun little couple times together, talking about just stuff that we probably can't repeat on the podcast. We probably will later. But
I mean, I've got a nice quote from the beginning of this book that I'll read in a few minutes. Because
would you like to get it out now, or do you want to?
Yeah, I probably should, because it's all I'm going to be able to think about until I read it.
There you go.
So Mirax and Corin, and Mirax is the daughter. So to set up the relationship a bit, because this is pretty important, it's kind of a conflict that is sort of ended in this book, but runs throughout the other three. Sorry. Corin's father worked for Corsac, which is basically like the Mounties of Corellia. And
the Mounties are the police of Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So they're the Mounties of Corellia, which are the police of Canada. And then on the other hand, Mirax's father is Booster Tarek, a famous sort of, mostly a smuggler. he is a bit of a criminal, I guess, but not a particularly violent one. And the two fathers had a rivalry with Corrin's father trying to chase Booster down for quite a while, and eventually catching him and sending him to prison for 5 years. So it's kind of like a bit of a Romeo and Juliet situation, but by this book, they're fully together, and we get a beautiful little paragraph from one of the first pages. Corrin is up at night thinking about his lightsaber and how he wants to be, how he's not sure, whether he should be a Jedi or whether he should be a Rogue Squadron pilot. And Mirax comes out, and she's basically like, "Look, what are you doing up so late?" She says, "Corrin Horn, this is not an hour when you do your best work." Corrin raised an eyebrow. "I seem to recall you singing a different tune last evening about this time." "At that time, you weren't concerned with Izani Isard. You were concerned with me. Ah, and that makes the difference. From my perspective, you bet." She took the lightsaber from his hand and set it atop the dresser. And I think if you're willing to work with me, I can share that perspective with you." He kissed her on the tip of the nose. "It would be my pleasure. That, Lieutenant Horn, is just half the objective here." That's like pretty damn close to like full on 99-cent pulp. Like,
they may as well have just thrown in the line then she gave it.
Yeah, exactly.
He gave her his Lieutenant Horn.
Like, why not at that point, right? But
then
yeah.
Mirax said, "But really, we should have sex, just in case no one was..."
Yeah, because some of the people reading this book are young and they won't understand all of the implications there. And when I read it, I didn't remember there being so much sex in these books, because Star Wars books are not totally, but generally pretty sexless. Like some exceptions, I guess. But most of the time, like, yeah, the characters get in relationships, but it's pretty much left at that. Like, Corrin has basically ranked every woman he meets based on attractiveness level.
Yeah, there's one further instance of a new character getting introduced in this book where we get some details there. But I think this book is probably the best of the four for not overdoing that to the same
Agreed.
extent, especially compared to Rogue Squadron, where it was like every other page.
Yes.
This one, you have that scene with Mirax, a couple references here and there, which is its life.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yep.
But then there's a scene with Fleury Voru talking about Arisi Delaret, which also doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so Fleury Voru is basically, well, originally he was released, and this is a little bit convoluted because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but originally he's released by Rogue Squadron to help stir up some trouble on Coruscant. Eventually he joins Isard and runs to Typhera, and now he's her Minister of Commerce. And then there's also a character, Arisi Delaret. She was at one point on Rogue Squadron, but she was an Imperial spy, and now she is also with the Typheran. So all the sort of bad guys are in one place. And Fleury Voru, who I kind of imagine as being this old man, like at
even
least,
he imagines himself.
Yeah, because he's been in prison for quite a while. And
he was pretty highly positioned before he went to prison.
Yes.
So I think he's probably like mid-70s or something.
Yeah, I didn't quite imagine him that old, but I guess that would make sense.
Well, he was talking about...
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
He was talking about how he only had so many years left to execute his vision for his life.
Yeah.
But...
I didn't
and we know
like that, but
people in Star Wars live longer, too.
Yeah.
So, going back to our first episode, even if the Bakurans lived even strangely longer than that. So, I was picturing him like 70, 75.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then, let's just remind everyone that Arisi is the number one draft pick on Corrin's attractive single ladies list, I believe.
Yes.
Even above Mirax.
Well, no, number two.
Below Mirax?
No, above Mirax, which he is very explicit about.
Yeah.
And his future wife Mirax.
And Iella is like way down there.
Yeah, but it's the otter that's first. Cheryl.
Oh, I forgot about
whatever her name was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the smooth skin doesn't compare to that sweet otter touch, does it? Oh God.
And there's the new character in this book whose mouth is slightly too wide.
Yeah,
so...
Yeah, so she's number 5.
The only detail we learn about her.
I don't remember if Korran, does he specifically, because Isard is always talked about as being strangely attractive as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of that comes from Voru.
Yeah.
Where every scene that Voru's in with Isard is like, and remember, she has 2 different colored eyes.
Yeah.
And in case you didn't recall from last paragraph, her one eye was different from the other eye. And in this moment, the bright burning of the eye that was different from the other eye.
It very subtly reflects the duality of her nature. Sometimes she can be cold and mean, sometimes she can be angry and mean.
There's that Simpsons episode where it's like a parody of The Departed. And at the end, there's the rat that's going over the fence or whatever, and Ralph shows up. The rat symbolizes obviousness.
Yeah, basically. I mean, to be fair, these aren't books for symbolism. I'm sure there's some in there, like if you'll... maybe not, but there could be.
Sure, there's plenty of symbolism.
Yeah.
Like
the
and there's like discussion of PTSD. They're not as pulpy as you would like to think.
That's true. And ultimately they're enjoyable books, which I think for an expanded... Sorry?
Try don't just point out in the chat something that I think we miss, where Isard actually has 2 different colored eyes.
Oh, did I mention that?
No, I think we forgot. It doesn't come up much in the book. It's an easy detail.
I think that's only in the Essential Guide to Warfare.
You got to go deep into the source books to get this.
Yeah, if you look in the there was an old Gamer Guide magazine, and just one picture of her, black and white, but the shades are different, so people assume.
Took a lot. We should probably collaborate on a lore video to get to the root of this issue.
We should. Anyway, I don't think we've talked about anything of substance yet.
All right, so for the broader part of the book, we're talking about Wedge, or the book we're not talking about. The book is talking about Wedge's leadership, or the attempts that Wedge is leading to undermine Isard's attempts to control the BACTA production, BACTA distribution across the galaxy. This is probably where episode 1 got the idea that economics and trade disputes was the best way to go for the trilogy.
Of course.
So generally what the Rogue Squadron members' goal is they are going to try to build up their resources, and they're going to raid the BACTA convoys as they're sent out. They'll hijack all the BACTA transports, and they'll send them out to other planets that need them. So we won't go too much, I don't think, into the individual execution of that, except for when it comes directly to the Corruptor, which is one of Isard's ships.
I mean, both forces are pretty simple in what they have. Like Isard only has, she's got 2 Imp 2s, a Victory, and the Super Star Destroyer itself.
Yeah, so there's the Corruptor, which is the Victory Star Destroyer. There's the Virulence and the Avarice, I think, which are the Imperial Star Destroyers, and Lusankya, which is the Super Star Destroyer. Wedge and Rogue Squadron, they start off with just Mirax Terex Pulsar Skate, which is like a freighter smuggly ship. Think Millennium Falcon scale. I think a little bit bigger than that, but
yeah, I think so.
Nothing huge. And they have a single Z95 Headhunter.
Right.
Or they had the other ones, but they sold them off.
Right, and that's from like the raid on Coruscant, right?
Yeah, they used those to capture Coruscant. Tycho had bought them, and they have a bunch of money that had been deposited in Tycho's accounts to frame them. So like 17 million credits.
Yeah, but I mean, they ramp up quickly with the amount of money that they're dealing with.
Yeah,
because
pretty early on in the book.
Yeah,
they sell them.
Yeah, and I mean, it would have been interesting if like they had kind of a motley crew, but like almost immediately the New Republic kind of under the table gives them their starfighters back.
Yeah, so it's like the 3rd or 4th chapter in, Wedge and Tycho are talking, and Tycho has managed to get. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear that, but
are you in like Need for Speed Underground? What's going on?
I'm actually recording this from a car right now.
Oh, nice.
But they managed to get Entry, which is their droid back that was able to get a bunch of deals for him, and he never comes up again in the book that I can remember. But they also get their X-Wings were noted as surplus military hardware and sold off to them.
Missing one thing.
Yeah,
the pilot.
There's it's pretty heavily implied throughout the book that even though they've had to resign from the Republic, the New Republic is implicitly supporting what they're doing, even if they can't openly do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that. I think M-Tree comes out too later when they get the Alderaanian ship, because Wedge kind of makes like a C-3PO-esque joke about how he's always reminding him of how familiar he is with like naval codes and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they were going to use him to run. They mentioned him as running the Valiant and annoying all the droids to death.
Yeah. Daigo's Fish did had a good point. A good note. The Coruscant Z95s are sold as collector items, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, the Bothan, the one that Seer drove in particular is highlighted because as a Bothan, the Bothans are really big into what their contribution is to the rebellion. So Wedge and Tycho talk about that as probably the biggest value ticket for them.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting because really throughout all of the Star Wars EU, like the main characters are like famous galaxy wide. Like Luke is probably one of the most famous people in the galaxy. Same with Han. There's a bit in I think it's the Swarm War, where like they're on a Killik ship or something, and like they're signing these things. Like, and like the whole point is like the Killiks are very logical. So like Han's like, hey, we'll sell all these and you can make lots of money off them. But all these people would be really, really famous, but Han and Leia, for example, are always just kind of walking down the street and stuff.
I love the idea of Han in his old age, just like hawking merchandise.
Yeah,
get your official Millennium Falcon toys here, kid.
That's what it is. It's like a statue with a Millennium Falcon, and of course, it's filled with little critters, because that's how they take down the Fifth Fleet. They fill it full of critters. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Since we're talking about the acquisition of their stuff here in the New Republic helping them, it's probably a good time to talk about why the New Republic is
yes.
not fighting with them and what they're actually doing.
Well, I'm the legal expert,
kind of
so
stupid. Go for it.
Okay, it doesn't make it makes some sense, I guess, but not really. So the basic idea is that the New Republic doesn't want to be seen messing with internal politics. For one, Typhera is a non-member planet, so I don't see why they'd really care. Because they're worried that this is at a point where the New Republic's expanding very rapidly, and lots of new planets are joining the cause. And they're worried that if they start messing with internal politics on Typhera, because technically Typhera was run by two large BACTA corporations. It's, what is it, Zoltan and Zukfra?
Zukfra?
Yeah. And Zukfra is kind of oisted out. And then Azani Isard is kind of put up as, I don't know what her official role is, because it's kind of weird. She's kind of like a governor, but she's also, it's a company that runs the planet, basically. So yeah, the issue is that she's kind of inserted herself into a difficult political situation, and kind of taken advantage of it. And then the New Republic doesn't want to deal with that. And they also have Big Daddy Zinj, who is out causing trouble with a superstar destroyer that they also think is more important, I guess.
Yeah, so the argument that it's just internal politics, even if the tensions in the Civil War started before Isard got there and took advantage of it, throughout the book, she's attacking other planets.
Yeah.
And there's talking about
like
coup
she genocides.
and
She's ready to genocide the species.
Yeah, so their whole later on in the book, she's talking about the workforce, the local workforce.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I put together an analysis of the BACTA production here and determined that the BACTA industry needs only 1.8 million Vratics to operate all the facilities we have at 100% efficiency. That means there are 1 million surplus Vratics on the world.
Yeah.
And then she says how she's going to murderize them.
Yes.
And this information gets out because she wants Wedge to hear about it to lure him into attacking. But you'd think that would change the New Republic's...
Right. I mean, that's more than enough. That's more than enough for you. I mean, plus the fact that it's not like it's just a random planet. Like, Typhera, BACTA is one of the most important things in the entire galaxy. And she's essentially, using an imperial monopoly to, she's basically, torturing the rest of the galaxy.
Yeah, and just because there was the upper level of humans who were like, it kind of shows humanocentrism in the New Republic as well,
Hmm.
because the population stated as being 10,000 humans,
Yeah.
not all of which were in Zuckra,
Yeah.
and then 3 million Vratic. So very low population on this planet,
Hmm.
especially for a hive mind species.
Yeah.
But because Zuckra took over and was going to kill everyone, that was enough of a resolution of their internal politics for the New Republic to be like, no, this checks out.
Plus, I mean, like, she's an imperial warlord, basically. The New Republic can perfectly just declare war on her. Like, whenever Thrawn captured a planet, like, it's not like the New Republic was like, well, eternal struggle, baby. Good luck. Like, what was the name of that agricultural planet that basically just capitulates to him when he does the trick with the shield and the dreadnought? Remember?
Was that?
I can't remember the name of it, but you know what I mean, right? When they
Yeah,
because he he uses just as much force because maybe Isar doesn't shoot any turbo lasers, but she shows up with an at this point 8 kilometer long super star destroyer. How is that different than like? And she's just poisoned a planet. Like
yeah.
she's just killed potentially billions of people. Oh yeah, it was Yukio. Thank you, Die Ghost Fish. She's just killed billions of people. Like
Yeah, and she's
it
taking
doesn't make
over the
sense.
planet so that she can stop the treatment in the galaxy of
Yeah, so like I don't
the
think diplomatic
powers.
immunity like counts at this point.
Yeah, their reason for not getting involved is tenuous at best. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Wedge is trying to execute the war in that way, where they're doing the raids, they're getting the BACTA. The first thing we see, or the first raid we see, there's a bunch that are kind of implied as going on in the background.
Hmm.
But the first raid we see, they get the BACTA, and Corin and Ural take it to a planet called Halanet. I think it was Corin and Ural.
Uh, yeah, I think so.
And so they give it to this very small population planet as well, where they have a bunch of like a very high mutation rate disease that they can sort of treat, but they need Bacta to effectively wipe it out.
Yeah, and this planet's
And
like they're barely holding on. It's like basically a rock that they're living on, and
yeah,
it's like this disease doesn't kill them. It just makes them really hungry. Well, not really hungry, but they need to eat a lot to survive. So this
yeah, and they
disease is basically
can't
just gonna
afford the Bacta at
exactly
Asard's prices.
because like 1 billion credits
Yeah,
they say.
so the rogues give it to them, but then Asard starts realizing, well, they're giving it to these planets, so
Mhm.
we're gonna invoice these planets, and anyone who doesn't pay the invoice, we're gonna just show up and wreck them, and that's what she does. She sends 8 Convarian, which is the captain of Corruptor with the VSD2. They go to Halanet, and they start. No, that's what's actually. This would have been after the second raid, so I guess we'll talk about that first.
Yeah,
But she wipes out the colony.
yeah, it's kind of similar to what doesn't Dala kind of do something similar to that when she's kind of just going around wiping people out? Like, doesn't she like just raid a bunch of little colonies too? Or am I misremembering?
She does. There was the raid on Dantooine where they were trying to
Oh
put,
yeah,
I think, Gantoris's folk.
yes, yeah, that's right.
But yeah,
But yeah, so what they're doing because ISART doesn't really have that much in the way of assets, and they do talk about shipyards a bit in this book, which is kind of cool. She doesn't have access to any shipyards. She can't replace her TIE fighters. So basically, she's in a tough position where she's like trading with other warlords. Like they mentioned the deep core warlords like Blitzer Harsk a few times.
yeah,
So they'll trade some Bacta for some TIE fighters, but like even with those extra units, it's still hard to protect all the Bacta convoys because if you imagine, I mean, this book probably doesn't even do justice to the scale that something like this would need. This is a treatment that's being used across the galaxy. Um,
yeah. It's like
so
she's responsible for the protection of every Tylenol shipment in the world.
exactly. So Rogue Squadron, they steal. They don't think they outright destroy any, do they? They
They
destroy a
do
colony.
eventually destroy the production facility on Kretsu 5,
Right.
but they're mostly trying to just hijack as much Bacta as possible and give it to people. They're Robin Hooding all the Bacta.
Right. And you know what? I got a real problem with something Wedge does here.
In the first raid on the convoy?
Well, I'll save it for the second raid.
Okay, well, Right after the first raid, since we're going to try to get there pretty quickly,
Yeah.
there's another scene between Isard and Fleury Voru. There's going to be a few throughout the book where Isard just like rails at people, especially Arisi Delaret and Fleury Voru, where no one likes her in this book. She's always saying the wrong thing. So there's a few scenes like that.
Definitely
There's
coming
another,
unhinged.
yeah. There's a quick segment where Corin goes down to Typhera and is delivering some supplies. They find out Bror Jace is alive. We'll talk about that in a minute. But at this part, the main thing that happens for Rogue Squadron is they pick up a bunch of new assets. So two old Rogue Squadron, I think they were both pilots.
I don't know if Sextus was. I don't think Sextus was.
Okay. So Elskol was, Sextus wasn't?
He might have been. Let me just check. I don't think Sextus was.
Well, either way, they pick up some old associates of Wedge who is they're gonna be in charge of running the rebellion on the planet. So they're gonna be trying to organize the Ashern or working with the Ashern. But they also get some Twi'leks who show up in the Death Seed fighters that we heard about in the last book. So now there's, I think, 2 squadrons worth of extra Death Seed fighters.
Yeah, they usually only run one at a time, though. And the Death Seed fighters are kind of cool, too. I'm going to do a video on them tomorrow, I think. But they're basically like mass... Because they're ugly starfighters, which means they are parts of different ships taken together. But unlike most uglies, they're kind of uniformly produced. So they're pretty decent little ships.
Yeah, they can kind of spin the same way B-Wings can.
Yeah.
But, sorry, kind of just yada-yading some of the plot points to get back to the second raid, and then we'll double back for whatever we need to. But so they go for a second raid. Sorry?
I was going to say, I don't think we ever explained who the Ashern actually are.
Okay. Do you want to do that with, like, Bror Jace?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So we'll just do the second raid, talk about the attack on Halanet, and then come back to the Ashern and all the stuff on the planet.
Cool. One thing that we do have a viewer question, kind of on because we're talking about equipment. One thing that's unique is after they get their X-wings back, we kind of talked about this. Basically, the New Republic kind of gives it to them under the table. It's heavily suggested anyway. They each kind of paint them uniquely. And we got an interesting question from, I think it was from Nick, and he said,
"Yep."
He said, "Hey Corey, Eck, I was just wondering your thoughts on paint jobs on the Rogue's X-wings. I feel it is one of those cool minor details that helps add to the warplanes parallels and the pulpy nature of the book. Also, which was your guys' favorite? I personally like Gavin's Crate Dragon, bringing it back again to World War II warplanes." Thoughts, Corey? Thank you, Nick, for the email, by the way.
There's actually a picture of some of the designs that was in another piece of media. I'm gonna see if I can look it up, but I think he's right. Gavin's is the correct answer. Right?
Well, I do kind of like the Tychos, just because I think the Tychos is just red with like black and white. I don't know. I just think that'd be a cool color combination. But yeah, I think probably the right answer.
Yeah, the Tychos becomes important later because he changes his call sign his IFF code, where he sets it up to be the same as Another Chance.
Yeah,
which is an old Alderaanian freighter that they put all the weapons on after they demilitarized. So he basically jumps into systems identifying as Another Chance, and that'll be important later.
They do something like that in the Vong War too, when I forget the name of the squadron, the one that's like Jaina and Jagged. They all paint their X-wings, or Jagged has his what's it called, his Clawcraft. I don't know. I do like when pilots do that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they've got to make sure they leave the the kill counters on. So
yeah, of course. And
gotta have a VSD and Death Stars on wedges.
Yeah, exactly. Because at one point, well, we'll talk about this in a second, but yeah, they're continuing to do the count. I wish I would have tracked how many lives Corrin extinguished in these 3 books. It must be upwards of like 25 or 30.
And then there's whatever happens off screen too.
Yeah.
Because
he's
just on a murder spree for books and books.
Yeah. Plus, him and Mirax killed each other that one night, if you know what I mean.
Oh God. That's 1,000 little deaths, right? So
yeah. Add that to the X-Wing.
Well, we don't know if they both did that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, they suggested that. Anyway.
Well, they talk about practicing later.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we need to have a specific episode just for
We
recording
just need to get all this shit out.
Yeah, so they have the second raid they cover is after they have all the extra resources that your Daki are there, which is why I was trying to yada through it.
Mhm.
But the during that raid, the corruptor, so Asardas figured out what they're doing, and because the transport was being kind of argumentative, there were three, and the lead one was being like, "No, we're not giving you our stuff. They're going to kill our family." Because they're taking that extra time to surrender, corruptor has time to catch up to them, shows up in system, and basically blasts the transport into dust.
Yeah.
Before it does that, they kill the only Rogue Squadron casualty in the book, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Riv Shiel, the Shivastinanian.
Yeah, and he's murdered, and I think we both have this thought. He's murdered like so like offhandedly that like I searched him up. I was like, did he somehow survive this? And like I put a little note that like he's the worst treated wolf man since the one who was just removed from the special edition. like he's just gone, and Wedge is like, well, that happened. Like we'll have to bring the vacuum around after like he's eating at the mess, I guess now.
There are a few comments, sorry, in the chat just saying that they're either at the end or it hasn't started yet. So I think there might be an issue with the stream, but it may not just be me. But either way,
let me just double check because it says, "Are you guys having stream issues?" It says it's working for me. It might be because there's only a still image, but
yeah. Well, either way,
yeah, let's just continue.
The other point there, I guess, was that's how Gavin ends up on Alan, and that is there when they're attacking. But
right, and I don't quite. So it seems like he was recovered after the battle or something, and then or like because it makes it seem like during the actual battle that he gets taken out, but then they're like, no, he's still alive because
he just jumped to hyperspace when as soon as it happened. I think that's what he says.
Gotcha. I must have missed that. But
yeah, he just made a few jumps out, and then he knew how to get to Hownet. He wasn't good at astrogation, and that was a place that he knew.
Which is something they mentioned like in the first book.
Yeah, because Lujane Forge was teaching him how to astrogate, astronavigate.
She got stabbed.
Then she's dead, so no one bothered to finish.
He's like, well, guess I'm not traveling the stars anymore.
Yeah, just shut up, Gavin, and follow us, stupid kid.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to mention though is Wedge promises all these people that he's going to protect their family, and he definitely doesn't. Like,
yeah,
like a lot. Like, there's definitely a lot of people who are murdered on the ground, because I'm sure the Asheron rebels can't protect all of them.
If there was even like an offhanded mention from Wedge to Booster, like, oh, these are the families of the people, let's get them hidden. But no, not even once.
And I think it later says because Isard actually straight up says later, "Don't worry, I've already killed all the families." When she's testing,
when Seryanka defects, and I think it was Seryanka.
Or no, it was when Converian after the second battle. Because remember, she's like dressing him down, kind of.
Yeah, because Voru was gonna be like, "Oh well, don't you want us to do this?" He's like, oh, "Don't worry, we already killed them all."
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there is the mention of Wedge getting the Asheron to kidnap the people that are on the planet, but there was a few places where it was happening off planet too.
Yeah,
and there was basically no attempt to. Wedge is very unaware of what collateral damage is in this book, where it seems like it's kind of a blind spot for the roads.
Well, that's why they're not associated with the New Republic anymore. You can tell because they painted their X-Wings differently.
That's true. You can't have those New Republic colors.
Yeah. So let's talk about the second battle specifically. Basically, I guess you already basically explained what happened. They're slow. The Victory Star Destroyer shows up and blasts a couple of... it blasts a freighter and one of the X-Wings. And then there's also the attack on... so Gavin goes to this planet, the same one that they gave BACTA to, And Isard's like, well, we've got to re-extract the Bacta basically from those who took it, and she launches a big strike. And I kind of like that scene. It's pretty brutal, though.
Yeah, she just murders everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Gavin gets away.
Yeah.
But there's another scene between Arisi and Gavin, too.
And one thing that really bothered me is that Arisi, at this point, is flying a TIE Interceptor, and she refers to its landing gear. When, like, TIE Interceptors don't have landing gear.
That one does.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It lands in snow.
It says so in the book.
You are right.
Aren't you reading the book?
You are right. Like, that's the obvious explanation, but
yeah,
I don't like it. Makes me sad.
Is this the scene where we get the name for Gavin's astromech?
Oh yeah, isn't it like Jawa swag or something?
It's Jawa swag.
Oh hey, you've got it marked down.
I made a note of it because it's the dumbest thing. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Jawa swag, as in like,
or Jawa swag, like do Jawas have that much swag?
Or it's about talking and it's actually jaw as wag.
Or just or Jawa, yeah, Jawas wag, like they wag their. I don't think Jawas have a tail, but they could.
You don't know what's under the robes.
Yeah,
it's like the TIE Interceptor landing gear.
That's what they're hiding back there.
We need to get incredible cross sections of a jaw.
Yeah, I'm down. You know how there's the what's his name? Crate was a Tusken Raider for a while. Darth Crate. Why didn't we ever get like someone who had a history of being raised among the Jawas and who like turned evil?
R2 for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, or it could have been like a Chadra fan or something.
Ooh, if Techly.
Yes. It would have been
that should be a subplot we look into for.
I'm gonna see if I can make it work. If there's nothing in the books that directly contradicts it, it's gonna be my new headcanon.
Yeah, anything that's not directly contradicted by the books, even some stuff that is canon.
I kind of get it now. Actually, Jawas steal droids and stuff. So like a droid would be like the Jawas swag.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Still,
you can tell he's a 17.
His age.
Yeah. Speaking of, we didn't really mention they do take a nice little stop over when they introduce. I think it's before the first raid. Even they take a stop over at the Darklighter family farm.
Yeah.
On Tatooine, and of course they stop at a Tapcaf or a cantina. Sorry, in Tatooine. And wouldn't you guess it? It's the exact same one we always stop at.
Well, Mos Eisley's only so big. How many bars do you need?
Have you seen the kind of people that hang out at Mos Eisley? Not all the drunks in town can't fit in that one cantina.
That's fair. So I'm from a very small village. So the city of Niagara Falls has a small village next to it called Chippewa.
I know exactly where it is.
So there's only a couple thousand people that live there. And there's very few streets, but on 2 streets, there are, I think I counted 11 bars.
Yep.
Each one at most 2 minutes from the next. Yeah. So
Halifax, apparently, people say they have the most bars per capita, but it's been down to second most bars per capita.
Damn,
so we have,
guys gotta catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the suburbs, and there's like 5 bars I can walk to. So like, it's the perfect place to really nurse a nice drinking problem.
How did they get the naming rights of Mos Eisley Cantina?
True.
That's what I know. Like, is there also Mos Eisley Bar and Mos Eisley
and why
Cantina?
Does anyone else work there besides Wooher and what's her name from the holiday special?
This is what, 7 years later? No, this is like 11 years later because that was.
No, it's not. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah, it is because after New Hope, because there's 4ABY would be. No, right.
Yeah. You were thinking of... Yeah. It was Return After...
I was thinking after Endor,
yeah.
No. It's 7 years. Yeah. So he has got no career prospects at that point.
Oh, God, no.
How long has he been there?
Speaking of, we did get a... Well, I think the new canon has him, like... I think there's a story about him being, like, scarred by the Clone Wars or something. But, yeah. We did get an email about that. I'll just read it.
Drinking Rhodians? Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I gotta... Corey, can you check who this one's from as I'm reading it? So it says, I have really enjoyed the series you are doing on the EU books. I decided I have to catch up when you started the X-Wing series. They are some of, if not my favorite, Star Wars Legends books. BACTA is my favorite. I think it's interesting how in this book, Wedge and the Rogues are in complete control of what is going on, which is 100% true. I think Booster Terra commanding the station and later the Imstar Deuce is the most amusing plot point. And then there's a bunch more, but the part that I wanted to get to is there's one reference to, I think, Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina. The reference is in Chapter 6 when Wooher is telling off a Rodian and a Deveronian for going after Mirax. When he threatens their death, he calls dibs on the Rodian. I'm all but certain that this is a reference to the story of Wooher turning Greedo's body into the most potent drink ever. Did you catch that one?
I did not.
Me neither.
That's from
I don't even
Wild Christmas.
Yeah, I don't even really remember Tales. I don't remember that story in Tales, but yeah. Interesting reference. Did you get the name of the person who sent that?
Wild Christmas. It's right under the.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
That's how emails work. If you just scroll right
you know
down
what?
below the message.
Corey, I copied it to a
That's
different
usually where people
notepad
send it.
and I forgot to take the name.
Okay.
God, why do you make me use my big boy voice on the podcast?
I was thinking that you were just reading from the thing, but
well,
you know, also, so when you were copying, that's another thing you could do where you could just continue scrolling with that, and then you could copy the name as well. But you know, that's just me.
Well, I'm not quite sophisticated.
I don't know
enough
how
for
you
that.
do things on the East Coast, but here in Ontario,
we have droids who do that for us out here.
yeah, we're gonna get into some local Canadian
beef.
regional politics.
Goddamn upper Canadian. Anyway.
Oh yeah. What are you talking about, buddy?
Listen, I'm gonna go out for a rip, and I'm gonna come back, and you better apologize.
Oh yeah, bud. You think he's gonna come back on in here, eh? I'm sorry if you feel that way, but come on, man.
I'm gonna throw some paws at you, buddy.
Oh.
Anyway,
that is the worst digression in the history of the podcast.
Well, I don't even know if it's the worst digression in this episode.
That's fair. We'll have to get someone to do a top 10 list. That's what we can do. Top 10 digressions on Tapcaf Transmissions.
Also, I think in this, I forgot to take a note of this, but I think they mentioned the droid scanner in the Mos Eisley Cantina, which is always one of my favorite things. You know what the droid scanner is?
I do not.
It's like, you know, when they walk in the cantina, there's like this big panel on the wall with like a blue, like lit kind of like cross on it.
Oh yeah, blue light there, bud.
Yeah, big time, bud. But yeah, that's the droid scanner, and it's in the cantina. Anyway, I don't know. What do you think about when he meets? So after they go to the cantina and Mirax throws her dad's name around because he's Booster Tarek. He's this, you know.
My father will hear about this.
Yeah, he's this big shot, basically. Then they go to the Darklighter residence. Not Gavin's father, Biggs's father, who in one of the other books is described as being kind of a dick. Because doesn't he try to steal land from somebody, basically?
Yeah, that's how he got all of his money.
Right.
He's described in this book as being kind of a dick, too.
Yes.
So.
Totally. So they go to his house, and of course, because he found this Imperial weapon stash somewhere on Tatooine, and Rogue Squadron still needs assets at this point. So it's Corrin and Gavin, I think, or no, sorry, Corrin and Mirax, because yeah,
Corrin, Mirax, and Gavin is there.
Yeah. So there's another person who wants this stuff. And wouldn't you guess, he comes out of the room and Corrin's like, I'll have you know this is the daughter of Booster Tarek. And of course, the guy he's talking to is Booster Tarek.
Yeah, which is very convenient because they needed someone to run their operations. And he agrees to do that too. And just decides to like give up his claim to the weapons because Wedge needs him.
Yep. But they're like, no, we can't be Imperial. Which, fair enough. So someone is putting a Nick Fuentes stream in the chat. That's a ban.
There was something that came up later in the books about what what Huff was doing with the equipment too, where he had this personal security force wear stormtrooper armor that he painted blue.
Wait, what?
There was stormtrooper armor in the.
Oh yeah. Right. So yeah, it does kind of pays off. See what they did there? They set it up and then they knock it down later on.
Damn.
Yep.
These guys really know how to write literature.
Yeah, they do. Um,
Did you know the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end?
yeah, but on that note, though, and this is off topic, unsurprisingly, the rogues don't suffer too much in this book, do they?
They don't suffer too much, but they also don't get mentioned too much outside of Corin, Wedge, and Tycho. No one
True.
else really seems to matter or have any lines.
Which I think if they had focused more on the squadron dynamic, because that's what the first book does so well, and the other books don't do quite as well. That would have brought this book to the next level for me. But like everything they plan goes right. I can't think of anything that goes wrong. And usually it goes better. There's the one raid
exploding doesn't go super well.
Dude, he's
in the other books,
he's not even good enough for the special editions, that his species. So like,
Well, in the other books, if someone, I guess they didn't care much about Bror Jace.
I don't know, a funeral for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least he dies on screen. Bror Jace dies off screen, and they tell us like as accidentally.
Yeah, Oral does get a lot. Gavin gets
Oral, yeah.
Amount. But we don't get their reactions to how they feel about each other very much. Yeah, like as a squad.
The banter, like the competition, or like the going to the Tapcaf or whatever. Like that's what the first book does really well.
They get set up, like they get built up to be the squad, and then it's like, okay, we already know they're the squad, so we're not going to talk.
Like throw a goddamn picnic in there at some point. You know, like I'm the crew, go out and get some sandwiches.
Like Riv dies, and then no one mentions him again.
Yeah.
Noir Aven gets like 2 lines.
Yeah.
In the entire book.
Yeah. Well, that's because they're saving all his lines for Fate of the Jedi when he'd be Luke Skywalker's lawyer.
Hmm. Yeah. He conveniently does have it, or not conveniently, but his leg goes away, so that's the end of Noir as a pilot too.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Ah, crap. I lost it. I completely lost it.
I guess we should go back to the Asher now and Bror Jace, talk about all the stuff that happened on Typhera.
Yeah. Do you want to cover
that? No.
Okay. So basically, there's 2 BACTA corporations on Typhera, and the Empire, they didn't quite imperialize the corporations, but they did allow them to form a monopoly. One of them is Zukfra, and that's the one Jace is from, right?
Zukfra is Arisi, Zaltan is Jace.
Oh, okay, so I've got it backwards. Okay, so Zukfra is the one that's in charge now.
Yeah.
So each of the BACTA corporations had a representative on Rogue Squadron. Zukfra had Arisi, who was the traitor, and then Zaltan, right?
Yes.
I can't do the BACTA politics. Zaltan had Bror. And basically, there's like a civil war between the two. Zukfra, Zaltan wants to actually formally join the New Republic because they think the Empire's days are numbered. I think Zukfra wants to remain neutral, but eventually they do kind of become the dominant power, and there's kind of this rebellion set up against them, the Asheron rebels, and it's largely Vratex, right? Like,
yeah, the Asheron are supposed to be like all Vratex.
Yeah,
but it turns out, like what Bror Jace tells us after he rescues Corin during the supply drop, is that the Zaltan had actually been working with the Asheron, and we're kind of like trying to work together for all that.
Right, and it's an Asheron rebel in book 3 who really helps out with the
Kalarn Harf or something.
Yeah, it's a Q&A.
And Jace actually says he was the one that sent Kalarn to Wedge.
Right. And he says if it hadn't been Wedge, he would have chosen Corin, which is kind of like, because they had a sort of a rivalry, but he's like, you know what, I respected you, bro.
They were frenemies.
Yeah. One thing, what do you think about the space station they're in? So it's I was kind of unclear, and I guess I would have had to go back to read this. So this is the same station Warlord Zinj has it, and then they liberate it. Does it actually explain how they managed to take the station itself and clear it out, or do they just do enough damage to it that everyone just leaves?
Well, they got to it in the last book, and then it just surrenders to them.
Oh, okay.
So, because it was Zinja's station, and they show up they take out the TIE fighters and like, yeah, we can either like
Yeah.
nuke you with stuff, or you can just give up and let us have it.
Yeah. So, and that's over Yogg-Dul, which is where the Given are from. And the Given are another exoskeleton species. So there's lots of bugs, lots of exoskeletons. Um, but one thing that I find kind of weird is the fact that the station manages to stay secret for so long. Because it seems like there's a lot of people going there. And I expected that Rogue Squadron would try to keep their involvement like hidden, like, keep everyone stay on one level. But, Korn will come back from a mission and he'll be like, well, guess I'm going to the Tapcaf.
Yeah, it's a pretty like open secret that it's the Rogues running it, Boosters running it for the Rogues,
Yeah.
and all Boosters people show up there. But Pash has it listed as having been destroyed in New Republic records, and that's kind of what Isard operates off of. So they just kind of take her word for it until they expose that they're there.
She clearly uses smugglers because she has that whole thing with Molina, but
yeah,
like somehow word doesn't get to her until the very end that they're hiding it there.
But well, during I guess the next major thing that would, unless there's anything you want to talk about with Corrin on TIE Farah during that raid where he kind of tries to do some Jedi stuff and fails, and then they meet Bror. I think it's all kind of.
I do like how when they're healing him, he's got like real good BACTA, and he's like they fix him up in 2 days. He thinks he's in
they
the
keep
tank.
The good stuff for himself.
I think he's in the tank for a week, and he's like, "Nah, man, we got the good here."
Yeah, we're not using that garbage we sell to the rest of you.
Yeah, this is that good shit.
But the first destruction of one of they're basically trying to pull apart Isard's focus because she only has the 4 ships. They don't want to fight them all at once. But Isard figures out where they're going to transfer some supplies because one of Talon Card's people, who is working to supply the Wedge's forces with weapons through a deal that Booster had made with Talon Card, one of his associates, what's her name?
Melina, isn't it?
Melina Karnas? Melina Karnas, I think it is. Has sold them out. She's working for Isard and says where they're going to be doing the transfer, which, like almost everything else, is at the graveyard of Alderaan.
Because why not?
It's the symbolism, but also the obviousness.
Yeah, like let's make Tycho feel shitty for an hour.
So they get to Alderaan, and when they're in the middle of the transfer, 8 Convarion shows up with the Corruptor, which is the VSD, and tries to destroy everyone. But luckily, they don't just have their freighters and their X-Wing. There's a puppy in the system named Valiant,
Sweet
which
old
is
boy.
an Alderaan, an Alderaanian war frigate. War frigate.
Yeah, they call it a war cruiser sometimes too.
Well, I think another chance is the cruiser, and then there's the 3 frigates that were tied to it.
And in the audiobook, they call it a Carrack later on too, because they say Carrack sized in the book. So the audiobook thinks that it's a Carrack cruiser.
Well, they also, if you want to go into how Valiant finds them and what the audiobook has to say about that.
Oh yeah, so basically in the book, what happens is, so there's this, like we explained earlier, there was this Alderaan and Legends, I think probably canon too, basically demilitarized, and somehow they fit all of their weapons on this ship, which is kind of like flying around space, and it's called Another Chance, and it's protected by these 3 ships, and there's one remaining, and basically it sniffs out when the fighters are adding paint and stuff, and to seem like they're separate from the New Republic, they also changed their IFF tags, basically like their codes, their transponder codes. And this ship was meant to protect Another Chance. So Tycho, being an Alderaanian, gives his code. He calls himself Another Chance. So when he comes in space, the ship thinks it's him. Well, the audiobook, for some reason, says that not only did he have the IFF code, but Tycho's ship looked like Another Chance, despite the fact that Tycho is flying an X-Wing and Another Chance is like this frigate. And that's kind of the problem with these audiobooks. They're 3 hours long, basically. I listened to almost all of it today after I finished reading. They're 3 hours long, and the problem with that is they try to summarize a lot of material, and sometimes they just do a bad job. Like calling the ship a carrack, despite the fact that...
Oh, but enough about the podcast. What does the audiobook do?
What do you mean?
The 3 hours long summarize the book and do a bad job that it's funny.
Okay.
Making fun of us. Yeah.
I'm not quick enough to stay up with your humor.
No.
I get it now, though.
That's I'll just be over here.
Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna let this one hang for a minute.
Please don't.
So yeah, there's lots of little things like that, and just generally, I'm gonna talk about this at one point. You got to be really careful when you listen to audiobooks this old, because yeah.
Oh, I guess this is also the battle where Isard has leased an interdictor, the aggregator.
Yeah, the second interdictor in the whole galaxy.
Greater Maldrude.
Yeah.
There's 4, one for each corner.
Yeah. Because it's called the what is it again? The aggregator.
I think it's aggregator.
And right away, Fleary Vory was like, the interdictor? He knows it by name, despite being locked on a moon for however many years.
If it was something like the Stoppy movie, like, oh, that's an interdictor, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. But aggregator, know that one.
Yeah.
But it's manned with really crappy Typharan Home Defense Corps pilots as well.
Yeah.
Which turns into a point of contention because Isard, when Valiant shows up and the X-Wings are able to destroy both Corruptor and Aggregator.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this.
No, the Aggregator is not destroyed. It just
Aggregator leaves.
It just runs away.
Is Corruptor? Yeah, Corruptor's destroyed because it gets torn up by the asteroids. But Isard blames Arisi's pilots for not being good enough.
And she's like, I told you, like I warned you.
Yeah, you gave them good evaluation. Like, yeah, I gave them good evaluation. Then you sent them up against the best fighters in the galaxy.
Yeah, I did like that because, unlike in the first book, Isard does seem pretty competent, but in this one she makes so many mistakes and pisses off so many people. There's literally 3 different people in the Empire who've got plans to just screw her over and seize control or just leave.
Everyone is looking for the first and best opportunity to just screw over Isard.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I mentioned in the episode yet, but there's a line by Asir the Bothan in Rogue Squadron where they're talking about how they're going to defy Isard, and she's like, no one else will ever dare to oppose her. We don't.
Literally everyone.
Literally everyone in this book. There's not a single person in this book that looks at Isard and is like, you know what, you have the right idea.
Yeah.
Voru wants to betray her. Irisi wants to betray her. Saryanka does betray her. Joak Dryso, who's the captain of the Lusankya,
would have,
wants to betray her because he wants control of everything. There's literally no one at any point in this book who says a single positive thing about Isard.
Yeah.
Not once.
Also, Joak's kind of funny because he thinks he's got a good plan, but it's so crappy. He's like, Azani's an idiot. You know what I would do? I'd steal the Lusankya and take over Corellia. And then take over Kuat and Fondor and North Dakota and South Dakota. Going to Coruscant to take back the White House. Yeah.
Because the last SSD to attack Corellia, that went so well.
Right. He's just... All the Imperials are just totally, deluded at this point.
See, what she's doing wrong is not taking over the galaxy.
Yeah.
What I'd do is I'd take over the galaxy.
Honestly,
and my plan is to take all the planets in the galaxy to accomplish that.
He's like, all I have to do is take every shipyard.
Take every shipyard and unite all the warlords.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah.
That's what she should have been doing.
Fleary Voru is actually probably the most reasonable because he's like, I'm just going to run away.
Yeah.
Fair
my
play.
plan is to not die. Who's with me?
Take the number 1 draft pick for Corran Horn's haunt list with me too. I do like that scene where he's like, you can come with me, and she's like, as a pilot or as a security advisor, as as a security advisor or whatever, or as a love interest.
Personal.
Yeah. And he's like, well, having you as a security advisor would be valuable, but having you as a love interest would be invaluable. And she's basically like, well, security advisor it is.
I can.
She's like, not feeling that, bud.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
They said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's down a ship, the weakest ship, but
Yeah.
they kind of portray Aitken Varian as the most Isardi captain who's going to take the most risks and be the most dangerous.
I mean, he does a good job of the first, like in the first battle, but
yeah. Well, he blew up a freighter.
Yeah.
And some and not even some X-wings.
And
I'm pretty sure that Shirdaki Death Seed fighters are literally just there so they can have casualties that aren't Rogue Squadron pilots. But he does manage to blow up a Rogue Squadron pilot.
And so, I think they do get 2 of the Death Seeds too. So I mean, it's
yeah. There was 3 or 4 people that die there, and that's it.
Too bad too bad they stole 1 billion credits worth of BACTA the day before. So.
But it's pretty soon after the loss of Corruptor that she loses the second one, where we pretty much right away go to a scene of Seryanka going to
it's a weird planet. It's like a
Abramaru.
Yeah. And he's meeting his mistress, who's like the wife of the Moff, the local Moff.
And he's trying to dress to impress both of them, because I guess the Moff is unaware of what's going on.
Right.
But
he's like, do I wear my red Admiral's uniform, which no one else in Star Wars beside Azani Isard has?
She has ruined this color for me.
Yeah. Or black.
But on his way there, he's thinking like, yeah, Isard's an idiot. I'd rather not.
Man, the Empire sucks now.
I even felt bad about this under Palpatine, but at least I could be like, you know what? Someone has to do what I'm doing. I'm just attacking pirates.
Yeah.
And at least the government's legal. But now, I hate what I'm doing, and I hate who I'm doing it for.
I do like how the Isard totally misplayed the Krytos virus, because it's almost like Death Star 2.0 in that it kind of seems to lead to a bunch of Imperials being like, nah, like this isn't for me anymore. Because that's kind of what happened with Tycho. He was like, the book reminds a few times he's like Skyping with his family on Alderaan when they get blown up.
Yeah, and then they try to blame the rebels on it.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't know.
I'm not about this.
Yeah. And then, which is really sad because it was a really good year for, as we learned, it was a really good year for Alderaanian wine, but no one got to try
it gets extra aerated.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems like a lot of people aren't down with like inflicting genocide against various alien races.
Which is good for them. Yeah. You know, we've spent so much of the last 3 episodes talking about, does Curtin Lore actually support this shit? Mm-hmm. So it's nice to get just Seryanka, the first scene we have with him saying, nope.
Yeah. So he's approached by, it's like a little strike team of like Wedge and some of the boys. And
which at first he thinks it's like some kind of weird foreplay.
Yeah. Because of they're wearing blue stormtrooper gear, and his mistress is wearing a blue dress. And
we're getting more people involved in this, I guess.
And he's like, the blue of her dress reminds me of many passionate nights we had. And he's like, sees the stormtrooper armor, and he's like, well, now I'm confused.
I mean,
stormtroopers are ruined for me now.
I'll put it on if that's what you really want.
And then they're like, and then obviously she screams, and he thinks they're gonna kill her. He's like, nope, we're gonna make you very rich, and what they want is for him to basically defect with the Star Destroyer's crew.
It seems like he would have done even without all the money.
Yeah,
so that was the biggest misplaced funds ever.
Booster Tarek wouldn't have made that mistake.
Yeah. That's probably why we get so much emphasis on how good Booster is, because the first scene we see with Wedge actually negotiating, he just really screws the deal.
Speaking of, this is the first, I don't remember if he was mentioned, but this is the first appearance of Talon Card. I feel like he might have gotten a mention in an earlier book.
Of who? Sorry.
Talonkarrde?
Well, chronologically or
No, I just mean like in the books we've read so far.
yeah, in the books we read, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like they're starting to draw characters from Thrawn. And that reminds me. So his associate Melina is just one of many people who were on Jabba's sail barge in Jabba's palace. Mara Jade was in there. I'm pretty sure that assassin that Talonkarrde uses.
Shada Dekal.
Yeah, I feel like Shada was there, but I don't remember. But yeah, just like everybody. And then there's a bunch of other named ones who have like really interesting backstories. It's like, oh, in Return of the Jedi, you see her and you think she's a dancer, but actually,
Jabba's whole operation was filled.
She was Jabba's security chief. She was working for Palpatine. Sith Lord.
Actually, if you look really closely in episode 6 in the palace, you can see Darth Plagueis in the background.
Yeah, he looks like he's actually a frog or like a dog animal eating frogs, but in reality, yeah, it's Darth Plagueis.
And then Ashrad Head is in the background in the when they're over the Dune Sea.
You know what else? If you look really closely, there's a guy wearing a mask, and it's actually Lando.
And he wears that exact same mask in Solo.
Oh, he does. Oh my God,
he does. So that isn't something I
like
picked up for that.
Yeah,
it was something that Lando carries around with him.
Yeah, because we know
that's my favorite part of Solo.
My favorite part of Solo is when he's doing his little narration and he's talking about like Flame Winds of Thambaka or whichever, Flame Winds of Ossian or Star Cave of Thambaka. I don't remember which one of the old books he makes reference to, but it's funny. But yeah, lots of everybody that was ever on Tatooine ends up being like super important. And someone said Shada was in Mos Eisley. I thought she was on the thing too, but yeah, I could be mistaken.
Well, she was only in Mos Eisley Cantina because Jabba was trying to keep an eye on the cantina, right?
That's true.
So it all ties together.
Another thing related to Jabba and Talonkarrde is we get another instance of someone saying Talonkarrde basically rose out of the shadow or kind of like a power vacuum, because in Thrawn they talk about how Talonkarrde basically took over after Jabba died. In the Thrawn duology, we have Talonkarrde taking over George Cardas's organization, and in this one, we have Talonkarrde taking over after Booster. All while being like, no one knows that he's like kind of as such a big shot. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of fitting with his character, but also like, damn, this dude knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he takes over basically every smuggling operation in the galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah, it ends up being very New Republic friendly by the end of it.
So we dealt with now Corruptor and would have been Avarice that turns into fruit. Yeah, Avarice.
Mm-hmm.
So that just leaves Lusankya and Virulence.
Mm-hmm. So
Wedge is ready to spring the final phase of their trap and deal with Isard once and for all. This is around the time we talked about a little bit earlier where Isard talks about wiping out all of the a million of the Veratics, or 1.8 million of the Veratics. I forget which way it was. Keeping a million either way. So she leaks that information out to Wedge, and Wedge wants her to find them now in order to save the Veratics. And they feel like they can deal with everything now. They have all the missiles they wanted, all the proton torpedoes they wanted.
Hold on. I think I lost Corey. Just a second, guys. Corey. Just a second, guys. We're having technical difficulties here. I think it might be my internet. Ah, crap. Oh, sorry. I lost you there, Corey.
I think your internet died.
Yeah, my internet did die. I don't know what happened. We should be back here in a second. Let me just See if the stream will restart.
Looks like it's coming back.
Okay. I think we're good.
All right.
All right, sorry about that. You were saying that he was basically getting supplies that we don't know what they're for.
Yeah. So a lot of torpedoes, a lot of targeting stuff, and they now know that there's the operative within Card's organization, so they're going to let her leak the location of their base to Isard.
Yeah. And Talon wants to kill her. Well, or at least he says he does to get stuff out of Booster, because he's like, well, for one thing, Talon does feel bad, and he kind of owes a debt because he caused Rogue Squadron member to die, and it was someone within his organization, so he wants to just straight up kill her. And Booster's like, no, we gotta use her. Like, killing her, that would be noob level. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So the plan is just lure them in and blow them up, basically.
Yep.
But one of the big points of it is that even though they have all the freighters outfitted with the proton torpedoes and everything, a bunch of targeting missile lock things go on the station itself, but they don't actually put any more missiles on the station.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like in book 1 where it's kind of like Corrin is knocked out and Tycho's in the Lambda or whatever vehicles he's in, and Corrin has the guns but no targeting, so he links with Tycho and blasts the thing. It's kind of like that. They end up making basically 300 weapons seem like 600 because they take the targeting for some and attach to the station, so it seems like that has weapons. Then they take the other 300 and attach it to freighters without any sort of targeting modules, but that ends up working out anyways because they just link it up with the fighters.
And they also get a gravity well generator Card gets for them. Right. So I think the idea behind that is that they're going to pull out the Virulence and the Lusankya a bit farther back in the system.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly what the point of it was, but I think that was it. I can't remember if there was like a secondary purpose.
I think their plan was basically ran perfectly. They would leak the location of their base. The enemy would jump in. They would make a very obvious show of running away with fighters, and then I think that they would just hope that they could somehow split the fleet up.
Yeah, so there was actually a discussion between Isard, Voru, and the captains of the ship. So Joak Dryso, who's now the captain of the Lusankya, and his kind of protege, who I can't remember the name of.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird one, where she's in charge of Virulence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where Isard's like, are you actually going to do anything if he doesn't tell you to? Like, should I?
Yeah.
But Dryso is saying, I don't need help. I'm going to go do this on my own. But you want to go over how the battle proceeds at first?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he does have a good point because... So you want to talk about like what actually happens, you mean?
Well, if you want to go into the good point first, that's
yeah. Well, I mean, his point is like, why bring like he's got a super Star Destroyer, and someone's like, well, they have that Alderaanian war frigate. You might want to bring the Star Destroyer, and he's like, bro, like, I've got a super Star Destroyer. Leave the ISD here, so we split our forces, and they can't hit both of us at once. And Isard's like, no. This Super Star Destroyer is basically the heart of our power. If we lose that, then we're screwed. So fair enough. They take both ships to Yogg-Dul, and because they've leaked the rogues have leaked the location of the system. Booster Tarek is still there. A very brave moment for Booster Tarek, especially because he's retired. That dude should be off resting, but he's like, you guys, like, you don't come in here, like, it's trouble. And then they go so far they get hit by the gravity well generator, which locks them from running away. And then Booster hits them with a bunch of tractor beams, which is another thing they ordered. And then all the tractor beams are locked on the Lusankya, and he starts pinging them with the targeting computers for the missiles, making it seem like they've got 300 guns pointed at the ship. So the Star Destroyer, and what it thinks is an act of bravery, the Virulence, moves in front of the SSD, kind of takes all the tractor beams, and then Lusankya runs back to Typhera.
This is also something that we're going to be talking about again with after it becomes Air Adventure, because in the Hand of Thrawn duology, there's another situation where Booster's on the other end of it, where Air Adventure is locked up by a bunch of Station's tractor beams too.
Yeah.
And there's another thing with the ships that they're going to repeat later.
Is that a Yogg duel as well? I know it's at the Imperial.
No, that was at Over Sky. No, Yagominer.
Yagominer, yeah, I knew it was something wild.
Another Yag.
Yeah.
They're just rehashing plots at that point.
Yeah. But so after that happens, they've got the confrontation. Then at Typhera, the Superstar Destroyer shows up, and the rogues made a big show of running away with their X-wings, making it seem like they're going to strike. While the Superstar Destroyer is dealing with the station. But the crew feels fairly confident because although it is kind of crappy, the Typharan Home Defense Corps is a thing, and they think they can hold off however many starfighters, less than 50. I think it's just 2 squads at this point, basically.
Yeah, and the Lusankya had left its fighters back at Yagdal.
Yeah.
So they'd scrambled them all, and then Dryso just got out as fast as possible. So they had none of their TIE fighters.
Yeah.
Just whatever the Typharans had.
Yeah. And as we know, the pilots, except for one squadron led by Arisi, just aren't very good. They're very green, is what they say specifically. But Rogue Squadron hasn't went straight to Typhera. They've stopped and they've met with the Star Destroyer that they've basically bribed the captain of. So they're attacking Typhera now, or they're not attacking. They're waiting in the Typharan system near the planet in a Star Destroyer. Oh yeah, there's also the Gan ships too. The TIE bombers with the modified. But we can maybe talk about that later, or not at all. Whatever.
Yeah. We get back to Typhera and Freedom shows up.
Right.
Along with all the fighters and the freighters, and Dryso's like, "Hey, it's your boy," and thinks that he's got virulence back.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Yeah, and initially, I don't think he even realized that the freighters aren't friendly. I think he just thinks they're moving BACTA.
Mm-hmm. They're kind of mixed in at first, but then they start locking missiles.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So we get a situation where it's basically. I kind of like how the Super Star Destroyer battle goes down. I didn't like it last time I read it, but this time I kind of did. In this book especially, shields work where you can pound away with them in missiles, lasers, whatever, and then if you manage to overwhelm the shield, it's not like the entire ship goes down, rather you create a small hole, then you can do further damage. So you've got a couple squadrons of fighters, and actually only the rogues have torpedoes because the ships used by the Twi'leks do not. So they're kind of very slowly ripping away at the Super Star Destroyer, and then it turns out that all these freighters are loaded with missiles too. But even still, the thing is just so tough that it's like being slowly whittled away. Like they'll break through the shields, they'll take down a few turbo laser batteries, they'll like basically destroy the entire front of the ship, but it's still kicking until the very end of the battle.
Yeah, even when Freedom shows up, basically their strategy is that they're going to wipe out the weapons on one side first and try to stay more on that side.
Very Empire at War strategy.
So many weapons that they can't do everything at once.
Yeah. And so they've also got they still have that little frigate helping them, and then they have the first Star Destroyer.
Valiant. Yeah. Chasing around the engine, shooting at the engines.
Yeah, fair play. And then so one of the main, I guess, tactical mistakes that the Lusankya does is they don't want to destroy the Freedom, they want to capture it again. So he just hits it with ion blasts, and the Freedom ends up re-entering the battle once its shields recharge.
Yeah, there's actually, I think it was a really good scene with Seryanka during the battle, where they kind of go on, and the rest of the crew, the Freedom's like, yeah, do we really want to be here? We're not being paid enough for this. And he's like, yeah, we can't exist in this galaxy unless we take down the ship. Yep. This is our buy-in to the New Republic.
Yeah, if we don't kill this big beast, it's gonna, But it really is like, it's kind of feels like, the rogues don't take, I guess, any losses really, because the way the TIE fighters are coming out, even though I think the Super Star Destroyer still has, or on station, whatever, there's like 5 squadrons of TIEs, but they're coming out sort of like in waves, so they're manageable, and they're crappy pilots too. But still, like, these aren't dedicated bombers. These are X-Wings. They've got no capital ship support. And they just can't really manage to make a kill shot against the vessel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sort of.
Sorry, I lost internet again there for a second.
Yeah. Okay, it seemed to be good.
Yeah.
You're not cutting out?
Yeah. Sorry, what was the last thing I said that you heard?
We were talking about how Wedge and Tycho were finding supplies.
Oh yeah, back then. And
Missed it.
yeah,
No,
Corin having a very emotional moment thinking of his daddy.
we were talking about how they were staggered, like the TIE Fighter and Home Defense people were staggered.
Oh
coming
yeah.
out.
So basically they're just manageable fighters and slowly picking away at this like behemoth of a Star Destroyer.
Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. I thought I lost you for a second.
Please.
But there is one loss that they kind of have, where Noir Ven gets blown out of his X-wing and he loses his leg. But I don't think anyone gets anywhere near that damage other than him.
Yeah, that's when like a Reese's fighters kind of, because she's got that elite squadron of like people who aren't totally crappy. And I think it's one of them that vapes his ship.
Basically, the climax of the battle, Wedge isn't getting a response from anyone when he's giving orders or saying what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So he's assuming that everyone's dead, even though they're mostly just very occupied. Mm-hmm. So there's a few minutes of like thinking it's going to be, he's just going to be going out in a blaze of glory. But Virulence shows up and
he thinks he's
Joak Dryso. Yeah, Wedge thinks it's over. Joak Dryso's like, we got this now. But it turns out Booster had taken it over, crewed it with his own guys, and shown up all in the space of, it probably would have been what, like 2 hours that they had to do that?
Yeah, because it wouldn't have been long.
Based on the travel times, because the SST is a bit slower.
And if you think about it too, isn't it like a 2-day travel time or something?
I think they say Lusankya takes 12 hours to get there.
So not that far, but...
Or is it 12 hours or 12 hours more than the fighters to get there?
I don't remember, to be honest.
I think it's 12.
Because I remember them saying at one point that the whole thing should be done in like 60 hours or something.
Yeah, and Dryso is thinking that they're going to get all the fighters that they left behind at Yagdal. Mm-hmm. But instead, Wedge sees the A-Wings flying out. Like, wait a minute, the Empire doesn't use A-Wings.
Yeah.
It turns out it's Pash Kraken.
Very, very fortunate, it turns out, because... At the beginning of the book, it's actually Pash who helps them get the station and helps them hide it as well. And his A-Wing squadron, which he's kind of reverted back to, we talked earlier about how he was just so good, so he had to join Rogue Squadron. Well, he's back. It turns out that they were in the area and they got ripped out by Booster's interdiction field. You hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yeah, they got ripped out by Booster's interdiction field, and they basically... Once they appear, the battle's basically over.
Yeah, it's all just clean up from then. There's a really good scene between Wedge trying to get Joak Dryso to surrender.
Yeah.
There's a point where Dryso is thinking he's going to ram Typhera with the Lusankya, which is...
Admittedly would have been a disaster.
Well, it's kind of funny considering how the Lusankya gets destroyed eventually.
Yeah, true.
Where it's ramming Yuuzhan Vong world ship.
Yeah.
So, just like with the... Errant Venture getting tractor beamed in another book, Lusankya does actually get to ram something.
Yeah. She goes out in a blaze. And funny enough, too, that actually, in that case, I'm pretty sure before they ram the Lusankya, they give all its guns to the Errant Venture. Or they give some of its guns.
They distributed a lot. I don't know if it all fit on the...
Well,
Errant
not
Venture.
all of them. But I just love how, like, later... So, the Virulence ends up being captured, obviously, as we said, by Booster Tarek, and there's this big scene later on where he's basically debating with General Kraken over who gets to keep the ship, and he ends up having to disarm some of it, but he keeps the Virulent. virulence, and he renames it as the Errant Venture. And then later on, it just like goes to shit because it's really hard to take care of a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
I think before it goes on the mission in the Thrawn duology, because the New Republic properly fixes it up because it needs to look like an ISD. Before it goes on that mission, the thing's just like falling apart.
Yeah,
like,
it's covered in like signage and
there's like one turbo laser working.
Yeah, but the Lusankya, Wedge calls him, and after his little "I'm gonna ram the planet" thing, Joe Dryso introduced himself to Wedge as Captain, no Admiral, and Wedge's like, "Why don't you just call yourself a Grand Admiral?
Yeah,
and surrender." And he's like, "A Grand Admiral never surrenders."
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, I like that.
Then someone else just knocks him out and surrenders Lusankya to the New Republic.
You think they knocked him out? I imagine that. I always imagine that they killed him, but I guess it's
knocked him out in whatever sense.
Yeah, permanently.
Shot him, hit him with I literally pictured them hitting him with a frying pan. I don't know why, and I never questioned that until this moment. But
yeah, I always imagine someone shot him and just like, "Yep, I'm the captain now." But I guess there's probably less violent ways to take command. I guess.
No, he definitely gets shot. 100%.
And then
there's no way he survived.
And then they're like, yeah, they end up giving up the ship, which is crazy because, remember, her defense force had 4 ships at the beginning: the Corruptor, the 2 Star Destroyers, and Lusankya. The New Republic or Booster makes off with all but the Corruptor, which they destroy.
Yeah, it ends up really well. Like, this is the most efficient military operation the New Republic never did, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say else about the battles of Yagdul or Typhera?
No, I think that covers about all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Corrin gets to kill Arisi. Which was a nice little segment, but it's nothing too interesting.
Yeah, it's very, like, he talks about how it's kind of unsatisfying because he just chases her down and just kills her. Like, he just shoots her and she crashes into a moon. And she's just gone.
Yeah.
It's very anticlimactic.
Even though the New Republic does get Lusankya, they don't fit and use it. They there's a medical station, a medical research station for a while until Dark Empire is like, hey, maybe we need some of these bigger ships too because they have 1,000 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it kind of fights warlords with during the Arinda campaign or whatever.
Was that Lusankya or Guardian?
It was both.
They captured them later.
Yeah,
it was both.
It was both. Yeah. Pretty sure the Lusankya was used in the Arinda campaign. Because isn't the Lusankya that one that's in that image, or maybe it's the Guardian in that image? I'm curious now. But yeah, basically, it doesn't see much action, despite there being kind of a lot of chances where it probably could have been pretty useful. Can you still hear me? Ah, God damn it. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Don't know what's going on with my internet. But yeah, so you're right. It does basically just sit in, pops out of Coruscant, has a little bit of action, gets really badly. I guess I didn't realize how badly it gets hammered, but it's basically the entire thing's almost slagged.
Yeah. To the point that if the Isard clone, which we haven't mentioned yet, hadn't removed all the prisoners from the Lusankya, then they all would have been like jetted into space.
Yeah.
Because the whole area lost atmosphere.
Yeah. Dude, and then, so ultimately, the main thing that was driving Corrin, which was, saving Jan and the other prisoners, he doesn't get to do in this book. Yeah,
the whole thing with Isard that happens is kind of wonky here, where she steals Fleury Voru's shuttle that he's going to use to get away with, but maybe not.
Yeah.
And then Tycho and Corrin blow her up, but actually they don't.
Yeah.
Who's actually on the shuttle? I don't remember that. We were discussing before.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was her or her clone that was on the shuttle.
But Isard's not actually dead. She'll show up again later. There was a clone of Isard that comes up in other things that we don't find out about in this book.
Yeah, we'll save it.
So, yeah.
There's a book called Isard's...
We'll talk about that later.
There's a book called Isard's Revenge, so you know.
Yeah, well, she's coming back. But I guess it's just the negotiations for virulence and the wedding that we've got to cover.
Right. So, well, there is a moment too where because Booster and Corrin, Corrin thinks that Booster doesn't like him because this book has very sloppy exposition. With Wedge basically just says exactly what's going on, and like he'll have these long ass monologues. So Corrin and Booster are getting into a fight that's kind of been brewing for a while with Booster insulting Corsac, Corrin's old job basically in his life, and Corrin insulting Booster's life, and then Wedge comes in with like a 30-minute long soliloquy about how, listen, you guys just both understood. This isn't your fight. You know what? Corrin's one of the best dudes I ever saw. Blah 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 blah. And it's like, man, like Wedge is the ultimate bro at this case. So Corrin kind of mends the relationship a little bit, and then he eventually also proposes to Mirax, and then she tells Booster, her dad, he's not too pleased, but he's not exactly. I wouldn't say he's not pleased with it. He's just very surprised. And then they get married.
Well, he's angry at the engagement. They decide the way to reduce his anger to make it as short as possible and get officially married by Wedge as the captain of Lusankya.
Yeah. Do we ever get a full wedding? Because they do say that like a proper wedding is coming. Star Wars is weird with weddings. Like there's like a couple of cases where like Han and Leia got married. Like that event happened multiple times.
Yeah. Luke and Mara got a specific comic for it.
Yes, I remember. Could get some.
I guess if you don't get a comic, it's not an official wedding.
Yeah, lots of Rogue Squadron faces in that comic. Winter's in it. Tycho's in it, obviously.
Face.
Yeah, it's just great. But yeah, so they get married, and then Booster's like, well, he was. I saw him as a Corsac guy, but the Rogue Squadron gets kind of brought back into the New Republic, and he's like, but now he's a rogue, so it's okay with me.
If only we had met in the 20 minutes before the book when I actually met him, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, he would have.
Is the implication there?
Yeah.
So clear horseshit, trying to save face, but then he also wants his Star Destroyer. So we get some obscure space law discussion about who owns what, and eventually they're talking with Aaron Kraken, the director of New Republic Intelligence, who's apparently got the authority to make this deal. And
yeah, seriously.
So they just decide that the fair way to do it, rather than risk having Booster out there with a fully armed ISD, give the weapons from the virulence to the Freedom, so they can refit it after it got like absolutely demolished by Lusankya.
Yeah.
Then Terra can keep the rest of the Star Destroyer with minimum armament, and renames that to Errant Venture to run as a giant mobile smuggling den.
Yeah, because it seems like he liked running the base, the Rogue Squadron base.
Yeah, and they mentioned earlier in the book how being a captain of, was it Valiant or was it something else?
I don't remember. Oh yeah, no, it was the Valiant. It wasn't big enough for him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he wanted a giant ship to be captain of, and
it's funny because Booster's like old in this, like he's pretty old dude, but he's still old 30 years later in like Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi.
Yeah.
He's like old enough to be retired, and then he's just like still just pretty old later on.
Well, to be fair, with he probably retired.
Yeah.
Like what, 60?
Yeah.
And
he's got a pretty busy retirement as well.
Yeah, so he's probably 90 by Fate of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Which lines up all right, because 60s you can call him old.
Yeah.
But he's still pretty.
How old do you think Mirax and Corrin are? Like late 20s?
That's what I've been picturing.
Yeah,
mid to late 20s. I think he's mid 20s in Rogue Squadron.
Okay. And that's like, this is a year and a half past then, because I think it's outright says that, but at another point it says, because he's had another anniversary of his dad's death.
Yeah.
And he has the first one right after he joined, I guess.
Yeah, so they're like regular pilots getting into their careers. They're relatively youngish.
Yeah.
A lot of the other rogues are probably early 20s.
Yeah, for sure. Because like most of the, like I don't want to, like the other Rogue Squadron members have kind of moved on to like, leadership roles elsewhere. Like, what is his name? Derek. He's still alive, right?
Yeah,
Hobby, yeah. Because like they were originally in Rogue Squadron, but in book one, like it's not like they're just a couple new members. They're basically restarting the squad at this point. So there's a lot of youngins.
Well, Tycho and Wedge are talking about like, is this an old or a young man's game? Or we're just too old for it now, and they're like 32.
Yeah, exactly.
So, any other plot points that we?
Let me just check my notes real quick.
They rejoin the New Republic. They all decide to take their commissions back when Aaron's like, "Oh, guess what? No one filed the paperwork."
Yeah, isn't that funny?
So,
thanks for capturing a Super Star Destroyer. I think that's mostly it that I had for main plot points.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else there. And just in case your internet dies again, we can get book rankings. You want to?
Sure. I quite enjoyed this one actually. Definitely better than Trusa Bakura. Definitely better than Krytos Trap. For me, this one might actually be number 2. It's really different than the other ones, but it kind of brings back the Rogue Squadron 1 feeling X-Wing 1 feeling, because you've got a kind of ragtag group. They've got a very kind of tenuous situation. They've got a very basic base, and they're just trying to get stronger and fight an overwhelming enemy. Daigo's Fist also wants to talk about Oral's Arc. We'll mention that at the end.
Yeah.
What about you? I really enjoyed this one.
I'd actually put this one first, I think.
Oh, nice.
Out of the 5 we've read so far. Like the criticism I'd have of it is that it doesn't talk as much about some of the pilots who have become kind of secondary at this point. The way it handles Riv's death isn't as good. Yeah. But that's kind of just judging it on the criteria that Rogue Squadron set up rather than what it is on its own.
Fair enough.
So I think out of all of them, I enjoyed this one the most. And it's kind of, by this point, it feels like Michael Stackwell has kind of figured out the universe a bit more and what he wants to do with it. So for me, I think it is number 1.
Yeah, it's got some good space. Like the last space battle is actually pretty good. You can mess up Super Star Destroyer battles by kind of gimping the ship. Like they do that a bit with Dala and the Night Hammer. It doesn't feel strong enough. But like in this book, it feels like a super slow, really inconvenient, lumbering beast that like the New Republic is like chewing away at. And I like that. That like felt right. The only thing keeping it from number 1, I think, is what you mentioned, the lack of squad dynamics. And it's really kind of like Corrin and Mirax and are really... Like, we don't get that. I guess we do get some from Gavin, but I don't know.
Yeah, a bit from Gavin, a lot from Oral, which we'll talk about, and some from, like, Riv. Riv's character takes a really big turn there, where he explodes, but...
yeah.
Oh, there's one other point I want to talk about before we get to Oral.
Yeah.
But it gets almost no comment, but Wedge brutally murders a member of the Squadron, and no one cares, even less than Riv.
Wait,
where he has Minox memory wiped.
Oh, yes, he does. I like that was kind of upsetting, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is droid murder. That's what it is.
And like, Minox kind of a bro. Like I couldn't do that. Like these people, Corrin would never do that to Whistler. I don't think.
Yeah, and it's not like a biological thing where it'd be kind of like a brainwashing or something.
No,
or something of a lesser crime.
Yeah.
Where the droids, they're all physically the same, and then it's the quirks in their programming that makes them have or like weird bugs in their personality that however it's hand waved. But once you get rid of the personality, it's just literally the exact same as all the other ones. There's nothing about the biological structure of it or mechanical structure of it that's different. So it is literally like if you got a puppy and then you decided the puppy was kind of annoying and you just erased the puppy and got a different puppy of the same breed.
Yeah.
It's 100% droid murder. # justice for Minoc.
Yeah, because like in which book is it? I think it's in the Swarm War when they're dealing with like R2-D2's got some memory things. He's got memories of
Padme, yeah.
Yeah, and like Luke almost doesn't do it because he's worried that he might erase his memory, which like he backed it up, but the droid would basically be like dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Like it happens to 3PO a lot, and
Yeah.
his seems to be slightly less intense where like Minok's core personality trait goes away.
Yeah.
So
Jaina does it too because she gets a new like funny droid. I was like,
just absolutely disgusting. But Oral, back to happier topics.
Yeah. Oral's actually one of my favorite squadron members. He's a pimp in this book too.
He's the best.
Yeah,
he's better than Bror. He's better than Corrin.
Way better than either of those. I think they say he kills like 6 fighters in like one of the last waves.
Yeah, there's a slow progression throughout the books of like Corrin being significantly impressed by things that Oral's doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like he can't even keep up with him at one point. I wonder whether that's because he's being kind of shadowed by his So Oral is being shadowed by these 2 representatives from his species, the Gand. They've got these weird things where it's like ego-based almost in a way, where if you're a Gand without many achievements, or if you're, ashamed about something, you'll refer to yourself by your family name. If you're more famous, you can use your first name. If you're in a really shameful moment, you might just call yourself Gand. But if you're like a legendary figure that everyone in your species should know, you can refer to yourself as I or me or whatever else. So Oral's got this group. I don't remember what they're called. They're basically
it's basically genuine, but spelled differently.
They're basically evaluating him to see whether he's reached that point yet, and he has at the end of the book.
We are to chronicle Krieg's existence and criticize. It's a great honor.
Yes.
And Oral just seems annoyed.
Yeah, and Corrin is just like at the bar, just like.
Yeah, so it's like I think the hierarchy goes like Gond, then Krieg, then Oral, and then now at the end he can call himself I.
Yeah. And
Corrin's like, oh, you must think we're all really arrogant if we're always walking around calling ourselves I. Like, nah, I just know you're idiots. Then he walks away, probably to like.
I just remember they're like bunk buddies for a while, and ever since then, I just like when I forget which planet they're on, Borlias maybe. They're like sharing a room together, Corrin and remember because he tries to wing on them.
For like the earliest bases that are Follower and Talasia.
Yeah, because he tries to wingman him with Mirax, I think.
Yeah,
he's like I got a free bed. The only thing I took out of X-Wing #1.
But did he establish why he had a free bed that night? Because maybe he was off doing his own stuff.
Yeah, he lost his arm, remember?
Yeah. Oh, was that when he was in the back then?
Yeah.
I thought he was...
Remember you made the joke about how he actually meant you could spend the night with him in the BACTA tank.
Yeah, right. I did say funny things.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to bring up was... Corrin mentions a few times how like Luke is like sending him Jedi leaflets the whole time, and I'm just picturing like being on this, this Luke Skywalker Jehovah Witness spam email chain that he's getting.
Did you know the Jedi once had a base at Ossus? Reply stopped for. He's like stop. He's like you just resubscribed to Jedi Facts. Did you know the Jedi had a ship that they used to teach people on? Did you know there's a Jedi spirit inside the eye of Palpatine?
Did you know that my father's Darth Vader? What?
Yeah, it's Luke's just kind of being a bit of a he's not being a pain, but he's definitely causing Corrin some self-doubt. I'm kind of looking forward to iJedi actually.
Right, there's at some point I think it's just in iJedi where he like completely yells at Luke, calling him incompetent or something.
Which, to be fair, he is.
Well, don't worry about it too much. Even if you include Kyle, Mara, and me, only 3 of your first 15 students are fucking dead right now. So
I mean, he hangs out with Callista for about half an hour, and she ends up losing all her force powers, going into the maw, and being possessed by Abeloth. So, I mean, that didn't work out very well, did it?
Luke is just full of bad ideas. We haven't seen him for like 4 books now, basically,
I know.
other than quick cameos. Yeah. So
he comes up. He comes up in like 2 minutes last book just to friggin' expose Corran Horn in front of the entire squad. Hey, you know your story you've been telling everyone? It's false.
Hey, Corn, want to tell everyone why you're lying to everyone?
Well, one
You
thing
know that family you're so connected to? Yeah. It's not.
you messed up, buddy. One thing we do learn in this is that Corran's grandfather is still alive. His adopted grandfather.
Oh.
He's on Corellia because I guess we didn't mention this. Corran gets a message from he finds a message from his dad in Whistler's databanks, and he's like, "Oh, I'll listen to it later." And the Mirax is like, "Well, have you thought about talking to your grandfather about this?" And he's like, "He's stuck under the diktat on Corellia."
Did he actually listen to the message in this book?
No.
Okay.
I don't think he does till I Jedi.
All right, so that'll be something to look forward to. Anything else you want to say about BACTA WAR?
No, I don't know. I've enjoyed reading all of these. You know, every single book we've read so far, even, what do I have number?
Krytos?
Even Krytos Trap, I've enjoyed reading all of them so far.
So far.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about what our plans for the future are? Because we are going to be changing things up a little bit for next episode.
Right, so I'm just going to go to the actual timeline. I think we've been mostly going chronologically.
Yeah.
Where we did Truce of Bakura, then we did these first four BACTA WAR books, the first four X-Wing books.
Yeah.
And next up chronologically would be Wraith Squadron.
And then 2 more.
So Wraith Squadron, Iron Fist, Solo Command, and then we'd have Courtship. But since we've done 4 X-Wing books in a row, and I think eventually we may have a guest for Wraith Squadron, but since we've done the 4 X-Wing books in a row, we want to mix it up a little bit. Next week, before we get to the X-Wing books by Aaron Alston, which starts with Wraith Squadron.
You mean the week after?
Next episode. Yeah. Next episode. We are instead going to loop back a little bit, take an episode away from X-Wing, and read Darth Plagueis by James Luceno.
One of the best Star Wars EU books.
So, yeah, another one that's probably going to be fighting for the top of our rankings.
It's going to be number 1 for me, I think. I'm so good.
Yeah, a lot to talk about with that. So if you guys want to get any questions right now for BACTA WAR, if you want to leave them in the chat when we close out the episode, we'll see what we can address. Or if you have any other questions for us about BACTA WAR or about Plagueis, you can send them to tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. That's where the 2 questions we answered today came from. There's a bunch of other feedback we've gotten, which we've read everything. I don't think we've responded to everything, but any emails you send,
both of us do read them. Yeah, so we've done 4 X-Wing books in a row now. We do have 3 more, but it's not really like this much more until we get up to really New Jedi Order. I think the longest. Do we have any? Well, I guess we'll do some of the young reader books, and they.
Yeah, but those are like 90 pages each.
We'll probably cover
combine. Yeah,
2 or 3 of them. But most other series are just 3 books. Some are 2. Are there any that are longer? Let me just pull up my EU timeline. But yeah, so if you feel like this is kind of dragging a bit, if you're not into X-Wing as much, like, don't worry. We'll be out of it soon. I mean, I've been enjoying it, so if you don't enjoy it, we'll be out of it soon. But if you do enjoy it, well, we still have 3 more episodes, and then we've got more X-Wing much, much later on.
Yeah, so I think the plan will be we'll do Darth Plagueis, then we'll come back for Wraith, Iron Fist, Solo Command. Then we might take another break and jump back between Solo Command and Courtship.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a bunch of standalone stuff. Then we get the Thrawn Trilogy.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and if you've never read the Thrawn Trilogy, obviously you need to. But I do think it makes sense. There's not really a lot that fits in. For example, we talked about reading Death Star before we read the Calista stuff because it gives some background on Dala. So, like, if you guys have any ideas of when we should hop back or kind of hop sideways, like if there's a Tales of book that would fit really well or something like that, like, let us know.
What I think could actually work is if we do Plagueis, we come back for Wraith, Iron Fist, Solo Command.
Mm-hmm.
Then whenever we do the Thrawn Trilogy, we could do
Outbound Flight. Yeah, I was thinking that too. The other thing about Plagueis is it's got so many good EU references, like, but
Yeah,
especially
it's like a big compendium of Sith knowledge.
yeah, but even like it's got what's his name what's Palpatine's advisor? Not his advisor, his I can't remember his name. What's the guy from Outbound Flight? What's his name again?
Kinman Doriana.
Yeah, Kinman Doriana's in Plagueis, isn't he? And he's in like nothing else. So it's a nice kind of like it's a, for an expanded universe, it's like a masterpiece almost.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're
yeah,
got a lot to look forward to.
at some
Good
point
books
I'd like to
coming
do
out.
Shadows of Mindor as well because we kind of skipped that because it's a weird one. We can go back
It's
to
a
that.
weird book, but yeah, kind of wanted to get the general basis for the podcast set up
Definitely.
before we go too deep into the weirdness.
Yeah, could be cool to do like one of the early kind of old Republic stuff before we do the Jedi Academy trilogy too.
Yeah.
And of course, we mentioned
Dawn
we'll
of the
do
Jedi.
some comics. I mean, we can't do Rogue Squadron comics because there's just so many of them. But like,
Yeah, and it'd be rehashing a lot of what we've already done.
yeah.
So,
But we mentioned we will do probably Dark Empire at some point. I mean, chronologically, I assume. Is there anything coming up that you're really excited for, Corey?
book-wise for that, I mean, Thrawn Trilogy and Outbound Flight. I
Really
think
good.
for a while, Outbound Flight was my favorite Star Wars book. It
It's
might
really
still be.
good.
So, like, I think that's where Timothy Zahn really figured out what he wanted Thrawn to
Mhm.
be, and that kind of ties together so much from the what the Empire is supposed to be, like what the justification, at least in Palpatine's mind, for what he was doing was,
Totally.
instead of just being I want to be Captain Evil, McBad guy.
Mhm.
So that's really what I'm looking forward to.
For me, it's New Rebellion. I don't know if I've ever read that book all the way through. I bought a copy and I've got some memories of some stuff that happens, but I really don't remember much of it. So kind of excited for that, especially because it's like the era that I like too. So
I don't know that I've ever read anything about New Rebellion.
it's
Like I know it's Kueller, right?
yeah,
So yeah, that it's pretty big blind spot for me. So
yeah. So that'll be good for both of us. Survivor's Quest 2 is a really good one.
yeah,
Which is that's the thing when you read the Outbound Flight first, you kind of lose some of the kind of intrigue and stuff that we get just kind of naturally. But
any chance of doing some of the source books for lore stuff? Like I'm sure as we get more into
substantial,
the novels, we'll possibly like throw in some episodes of just
yeah,
topical overviews, which could involve some of that.
yeah,
But there's a lot of opportunities for us to change up the format or throw in extra episodes. Because with that kind of thing, we wouldn't necessarily have in the space of two. That's kind of why it's a every other week thing.
yeah,
Because we have to fit in reading the books around everything else we're doing.
yeah.
Whereas if we do a topical one, if we're just going to be talking for an hour, that would be an opportunity for us to have another episode thrown in there. So I think that would be how that would. But
Yeah. Yeah, there's stress, like we've got a lot to do, and I mean the books aren't super long. No Star Wars books are really very long, although by the time we get to friggin' Vision of the Future I'm going to be complaining, but
yeah, those Spectre and Vision are super long. We'll probably just cut out everything to do with the Kamqua and Kamja
yeah.
when we do those. I won't say those words once while we're doing that.
I Jedi is pretty long too if I remember correctly.
Well, it pretty much condenses the whole trilogy into one
Yeah.
thing, and that yeah.
Yeah. And we still have to figure out. I mean, I'm pretty down to cover all of the, at least the Junior Jedi Knight stuff because they're fun. They're really fun stories.
Yeah.
Like
They're easy, quick.
you get lots of weird stuff. Like, you know, you get the Shadow Academy and stuff.
Yeah.
Plus, they're like strangely foundational for like the new Jedi Order and Legacy of the Force.
For everything that follows them, it's really important because Jason is the most important Star Wars character.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read this thing actually about how Talon Card actually caused everything in the Star Wars universe bad that happened because it was basically he's responsible for he's responsible for the creation of the what's it called? Why am I forgetting the name? I did a video on them. Not the Vornsker,
The Voxen?
yeah. He's responsible for the Voxen because he showed the Yuuzhan Vong the abilities of the Vornsker when he took them down to Yavin, when he's pretending to be on their side. Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah.
Anakin is hiding out on Yavin, I think. So he shows them the Vornsker, which they use to create the Voxen. The Voxen results in the death of Anakin on in Star by Star. And then I don't remember the later kind of arithmetic, but
Well, that's when Jason also gets captured. That's when
yeah.
Alema Rar. No, not Alema Rar. Alora. It is Alema. Alora, the one from Jedi Knight. Anyways, that's when the Dark Jedi go to the Swarm, to the Dark Nest.
Yep. Tahiri gets
Jason-
captured, or no, she's captured from Yavin. Never mind.
But yeah, everything bad happens because of Talon Card. That's a good point.
Yep. And that leads
All right, well,
all
we've
the way to
solved Star
Fate of the
Wars,
Jedi.
so I guess we don't need to do the podcast anymore.
Yeah, because if you think about it too, even the Fate of the Jedi stuff was caused because Centerpoint Station blew up, basically. And that only happened because Jason got a little antsy. So
all personal responsibility for anything people did after this is solved. It's Talon Card's fault.
Yep. I'm sure we can go back even further. Really, it's Jabba's fault for dying, for creating a power vacuum. So really, it's Leia's fault.
It's George Cardass's fault for giving Talon Card that power to seek out, like, he was Cardass's protege, which means it's Thrawn's fault for introducing George Cardass to anything.
You're just gonna skip the Yang T monks? They don't have anything to do with this. Well, I guess never mind, because they didn't have any. Yeah, they never. I guess they.
Yeah, that was
helped him return.
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah. After Cardass had already sent Card on his way, so. Wow. I don't think we can top that.
They must have planned all of this out from the very beginning.
It's fantastic. That's why nothing of substance happens in any of the books, because they know the starting and ending point.
Well, I mean, substantive. You are right. With these books, they are very limited because the X-Wing series comes out after, like everything else. So,
well, at least it gives them something to work towards. So
Yes.
it's not quite the same problem as other books that certain people have made YouTube videos on today that people should watch.
yeah, but like, yeah, let's watch my video, you buttholes.
That's a good way to inspire people to watch it if they haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
But anything else you want to throw out there?
I don't think we missed any questions. No, I think that's it for me. One last thing. Are there any books you're really, really not looking forward to reading?
Books I'm not looking forward to. Black Fleet Crisis.
That's a good call. Corellian Trilogy for me, I think.
There's at least some like interesting lore stuff in Corellian Trilogy.
Black Fleet Crisis has ship lore, dude.
It had a ship lore that with ships that never get mentioned again by anything.
Listen here. Yeah, I know. You're right.
Nebula Star Destroyer, irrelevant.
Yeah.
Worst ship.
K-Wing. See ya.
Garbage. All of it. Trash. Should do an episode on Kraken's Threat Dossier instead.
I'm down.
All right.
All right, guys. If you want to
That's
watch,
good for me.
if you want to give your thoughts to this mess of a podcast we have, you might even get to hear them. Assuming my internet works, you can email them to tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. Links to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and whatever else, Smoke Signal, are available down in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate you guys. Corey, you want to sign off?
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Looking forward to the next episode.
Me too.
Darth Plagueis is exciting stuff.
I'm gonna go buy a new version of it. Let's go.
I already did.
All right. Well,
Ordered it
just
right
show me
before the
up.
episode.
Show me up before I end the stream.
Hey. You called my stream cozy last time. I'm still salty.
Yeah, well, you deserve it.
Oh, man.